Okay, let's get started. This is the City of Urbana Human Relations Commission meeting, Tuesday, October 15th, 2024. Tom, could we have the roll call, please?
Shalini Smith.
Here.
Peter Resnick.
Here.
Vahagan Shiflikan.
Here.
Jerry Fry.
Here.
Charles Davidson. Ann Panthen.
Here. Thank you. Introduction of the new commissioner. I think, Carla, can you start us off on that?
I sure can. Last night, Mr. Charles Davidson was approved to be appointed for the Human Relations Commission Board, and I will let him share a little bit about himself, how you came to the board, why you want to be on the board, that kind of stuff. But, you know, keep it nice and brief.
Yes, so my name is Charles Davidson. I was born and raised here in Champaign County. I've been living in Urbana over 20 years. You know, I always like Urbana. I found out about the you needed people for the Human Relations Board, and I just wanted to be a part of it. You know, I always try to help people any way I can. You know, so that's how I got here. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles, and welcome. Approval of agenda. Hopefully everyone has seen the agenda, and we'll need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. We got the minutes the other day, and I'm hoping that everyone has looked through them. If you have any questions for Tom, we could ask. All looked good. All right. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from hang on one second, the meeting of September 17th, 2024?
I'll put forth that motion.
I'll second.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Public input. Are you folks, nope, just observers. Unfinished business. The 1222G complaint that was brought to us back in August at our regular meeting. So I will just give just a little bit of an update. I've talked to many people. I've emailed with quite a few people. Dr. Carla. There's a couple of more bits of information I'd like to get, which I'll be able to get pretty quickly. I was hoping to have it done this month, but I don't. We will present I will present the findings at the November meeting. And then following that, Carla and I think, will be put on the City Council agenda to report to the City Council what the findings are. So there's been quite a bit done, but a little more needs to be done, and then we'll be finished with it in November. So, and I did communicate that to the folks that signed the petition, so they're aware of the time frame. So that is the update for the 1222G. Any questions from the commissioners about it? No? All right, we'll move on to new business. We have some automatic 2-year certifications, which, now let me find them on my, I'm trying to use my computer for the, but Shalini's helping me out here. Thank you. So we'll need do we need a motion? I forget again.
No, ma'am, it's just an announcement.
Just an announcement. We have three companies eligible for automatic EEO certification or recertification. Vistane Group, which is a consulting firm for fire protection study. Rantoul Truck Center, which is exactly what it sounds like, trucks. It's recycling, collection and processing. And then we have Equipment Management Company, which has fire and rescue products. All of those companies have 14 and under employees, which makes them eligible for automatic certification. So those are the automatic certifications. Yes, Pete?
I noticed on a couple of forms, I didn't ring a bell before, that sometimes if they're going to use our sexual harassment policy that they fill in or equal opportunity policy, they check no on the little checklist and then add it. And it threw me for a second, like, oh, wait, they're missing something? But no, they're not missing it. They are using ours. Is there any expectation about what they should check, or?
What happened was that they checked no, which meant that I followed up with a conversation
sample.
and email with them, and then I didn't even think about editing that form, but that, sometimes I catch that.
That's fine. It just threw me for a moment, and then I realized what they had done, so, no, that's okay.
Any other questions about the automatic 2-year certification? No? Okay. The consideration of the EEO workforce statistics. So we could do the omnibus motion and get them all in and then discuss, if someone would like to.
I had a question up front.
Yes.
So one quick question up front, which is, there are a couple of them that I noticed where their employment numbers are not great, but they have made, some effort. One of them only turned over like 3 or 4 employees. And just as a question of like sort of practice going forward, do we want to approve those for 2 years, or do we want to say, we appreciate it, 1 year, and we're just going to check to make sure you're still making progress? And I don't have a strong feeling one way or the other. It's just when I see some numbers which are like, 100 employees and 1 minority employee, and we say you are approved for 2 years, that seems odd, even if that 1 employee was because they're making good faith efforts.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I just wanted to ask the question of the group before I made the motion, and I could be convinced either way.
I would be of the opinion that one of the purposes of our commission is to ensure diversity in the workplaces of the applications that we see. And if we just sort of give 2 years and 2 years and 2 years, I think we maybe are not putting the message out that we would like to put out. And so I would say we should do a 1 year and see how it goes next time. That would be my thought. Do you, anyone else have?
I didn't know if I could speak.
Of course you can speak.
I would say if we're putting in practice that you're not going to give a company 2 years, even if they have been making progress, but the progress is not producing a diverse workforce, that you also put in place other metrics that you're going to look at. One of the things that I have been doing is I have been looking at the community, and the numbers that you get here, this is the entire community, but what I've done is I've extracted 14-year-olds out of it and 85 or 74 plus out of it, and then I've looked at their numbers that way. But right now, you're currently looking at the entire population.
Yeah.
So it's kind of sending a mixed message of you should diversify your workforce, but you're not looking at the actual workforce that's available.
Yeah.
So I just started running the numbers of what is the actual workforce that would actually be able to work, and then using their employment rate, extracting that percentage out because those folks are working, to see who's actually available for work.
Right.
And then I would say if you're going to be scrutinizing, I would scrutinize it further using some actual numbers.
Okay. And you are providing those numbers in your,
I have not.
okay,
I could. I've just been doing it on my own to see what the numbers are actually like, but I usually leave the decisions up to you guys.
okay.
But we could add that so that you're getting a true picture to help you with your decision-making.
I think that would be very helpful, actually. I don't know, if you have a population of 100,000 and, did you say 85 and above?
No, I would do 70, it stops at 74, so I was going 75 and above.
Okay,
But
yeah,
they give you the numbers for every 5 years of
Okay.
age.
Yeah.
So I just extracted what would a typical retirement age be, and
okay,
took those out, and then 14 and under, they're not working.
yeah, okay. So it could really change
Sometimes it does change the numbers
Right.
significantly.
depending on what the community is like. So I would like to see that. I think that would be helpful to know the actual workforce chunk of people that they're recruiting from, even the 75-year-olds.
So how far up the age group
I
would
think,
you like
I
me
think
to,
that's plenty high.
where would you stop?
I think 75 is,
75 is a good number to, okay.
yeah. Okay. Do you think that'll help, Pete?
Yeah, I mean, in this particular case, the two that struck me were Mid-Illinois Concrete and the one two above it, Engineering Resource Associates. And each of those cases, they did make some minority hires, it was good. Mid-Illinois Concrete made 1 out of 6. Is that a good number or a bad number? Those numbers are so small, they only hired 6 people, 1 of them was a minority. It's hard to tell whether they are accomplishing something. I mean, I take it as a good sign that, some, 15 or 18% of your hires were minority, but it's hard to tell what that means long-term and whether that's gonna continue.
Right.
Like I said, I'm ambivalent about it. I would almost like to, do the 1 year, but instead of the normal letter we send, do a good job. We know that you've put these practices in place. We're glad to see it. We want to make sure it continues and it's looking good. So we're going to look at it again next year. But I don't know how to approach that, but that seems like a way to maybe encourage good behavior, but let us stay in the loop for at least a couple of years to make sure they're making good progress.
I believe that's what we're doing, because I think you've asked that. a
Kind of
while
thing
back, too.
before, yeah.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
we've been including those. The commission believes you're doing excellent work, blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
Okay. So why don't we do that for
And,
those?
and then, okay, so I'll make a motion to approve Axon Enterprise for 2 years, Barry Dunn for 2 years, Engineering Resource Associate with 1 year with such a letter, FMG Architects for 2 years, Mid-Illinois Concrete for 1 year with the same letter, Vermeer Sales, that's a mouthful, for 2 years, Upkeep Maintenance Services for 2 years, and I think that was it. Did I get that right? So moved.
We need a second.
I'll second.
Okay. Thank you.
Also, can I comment?
Absolutely. It's the
Before
perfect
moving
time.
forward, yeah, so I just wanted to ask, so is it possible to, since some of the agencies, as you said, are a little bit controversial because we can't understand if they are making a real progress or they are just like showing the number, just one worker and just to show us that they are doing progress. So I'm just wondering, is it possible to have quarterly or semi-annual touch base with them just to see if they have any real time updates on that issue, on like hiring new employees from diversified like ethnic groups, racial groups, or some other categories, or it's not possible?
I'll say, I think the downside to that is, especially given the hiring numbers we're talking about, this is occurring when they're hiring 6 people for the year. Halfway through the year, or even a quarter way through the year, so they may or may not have hired anybody, or they may have hired one person. I don't think we're gonna see much from that in these cases. For a big company, you know, like thousands of employees, but generally, those are the ones that it's really clear from the numbers whether they're making
Yeah,
progress or
right.
not year over year. So I guess, you know, we could try, but I suspect we're not gonna see much.
For small agents, for
this-
small
that-
companies.
those are the ones that I was asking the question about, these smaller companies where they've given us documentation which says, here are the steps we're taking to do better hiring, and we've got these policies in place now, and we did get a hire this year or two that are minority. At that point, I want to say, okay, let's give it another year, and because you're hiring in such small numbers, let's see what it looks like year over year and before we approve for 2.
I see. All right, so I would just like, although let's say that there are some legitimate reasons why many of these agencies, companies, or of these institutions may not diversify their workforce, but I still would like to encourage them and strongly recommend to use all opportunities, even small ones, to diversify their workforce and make it more inclusive. And because at the end of the day, it's not only about moral or institutional obligation, right? So, or like, it's more like, it's also advantages for them. It's a strategic advantage because they become more resilient, they become more stronger, and in many sense, it helps them to improve themselves too. So, yeah, thank you.
Carla?
Are we asking the companies to submit applications every 6 months? Because that might not be,
No, for small ones, it does not make, we came to a conclusion that there is no, because
Okay.
it's like, there are just like 6 or 5 people they hire annually, so, yeah.
I would also encourage looking at the industries, because I've also did some background checking on that. And with engineering, there are already low numbers of minorities going into engineering as an industry. And so they may not have the workforce available to pull from, because most of the time, if you're in engineering and you're also in a minority, you're getting swallowed up really quickly. And they're hiring you up really quickly. And there's a lot of companies, but not a lot of opportunity for diversity because it's spread out. So I'm just encouraging to think about those things also when trying to understand whether or not they're making good progress, or are they trying hard enough, is to take some other things into consideration. Yes, sir.
So one thing that I might suggest that might address Vahagan's concern here is if we go and give a letter that says, hey, you know, you got to do something here, this doesn't look good, so it's like the first time, it might be useful to us, because you're going to start getting that information presumably in between. You sent them a letter and said, please provide us with some information, some data. If every so often you can give us during perhaps your report, here's the kinds of things that we're getting in on the ones that you've asked for, these are the kinds of progress they're making, or even if you're explicitly soliciting, here's the kind of things we think you should be doing, and they're implementing those. Giving us a little report on that every so often might give us some background information about how folks do this, whether they're making good progress. But I think asking them, you know, repeatedly in the interim is probably not the best idea. But if you can let us know that, yes, you're hearing back from folks, something like that.
I want to I'm going to defer to Tom
Oh,
on that.
'cause he's the one who gets the
he wants to have-
information.
He would have to do that work.
Well, I think probably the best way to respond is when you stated something very specific that you'd like to see in a letter, that we can tailor that letter to, you can make that as specific as you'd like. So, of course, we have the option, you've used the option to have sometimes a 6-month report because you're giving a 6-month provisional certificate or the year. And each time we ask for a provisional or give a provisional certificate, we're asking for, most of the time, a good faith efforts update. I would take a close look at those when you see those come in, because anyone who's going to be staying for a 3-year term is going to see the same company 2 or 3 times if they're continuing to do business with the city. And your own institutional memory will kick in after a while, and you're going to go, I've seen this company, I've seen their reports are strong, or the reports are mediocre, and I'm going through that. Sometimes, we're asking for instance, a year-long certificate. We're asking them to start sending those in 60 to 90 days ahead of time, so that if Carla and I, say we need to give them some extra feedback, or they're just going to be wasting the time they're going to get a 6 month the next time if we don't get them a better report. And you've seen some of those really good, strong reports, Pete, and we've gotten to the point now where we're sending examples out to certain companies to say, you might want to try and tailor yours to your own company, but these are some really good things that are happening out there. And so you're able to set your expectations high over time on individual companies. And I think that's the way to go, is look at the industry, look at the company, look at the diversity that's in the community, and you'll start to see that you can build your own trends by getting the feedback you're asking for from these companies.
And I think you make a really good point. If we've got a big company that we think we better be seeing something in 6 months of what you're doing, then we give them a 6-month certification, and that way we get it back quicker and start to see what progress they're making. And with a smaller company, it's probably not worth it anyway, so giving them a 1 year and seeing what happens after a year is probably sufficient.
Yeah, thank you. And also I was thinking, I was just like thinking on another thing, such as providing additional incentives to organizations, companies, and agencies that are doing good faith effort. Some additional incentives or some kind of that promotes or helps them to be more motivated to not only just like, all right, so let's say we are doing progress and it will be automatically updated for 2 years, or some other things. There is nothing that comes to my mind, but we can think about that.
I'm not sure in city contracting we can give incentives. That might be crossing a line.
Put a thumbs up.
But we can give them a thank you,
At least.
attaboy. Yeah, I don't think we can give them incentives.
Yeah, we have to be careful of that. And I think the 2-year approval is an incentive for companies. I mean, they don't want to be filling this paperwork out every 6 months, so they want to do the right thing. And if we send them examples of a strong application, I think we're doing pretty good, so.
And we've also had some companies, when we've sent that, or we've suggested, here's some things you should be looking at, they didn't realize they were doing things that we were asking for, and when we send the examples, it triggered, oh yeah, we were doing this or that, and then they would send that in. Sometimes it's just a lack of understanding of what we're asking for.
Right.
Another thing that might be useful is on the page that has who's your EEO contact, you can see the title there. And that'll tell you a lot about how that company sees itself. If they have an HR person who's working on this on a regular basis, we see that result. If they have a different title, that level of awareness may be somewhat different, and sometimes we're surprised in a positive way, and sometimes we're saying, how can we help them learn a little bit more about the expectations of the commission?
Right. Okay, so for purposes of our discussion, the 1 year with a attaboy letter, and then, we'll visit you again in a year and see how it's going, that kind of that kind of thing. Okay. Are there any more comments about or questions about the list of applicants? No? Okay. Is this just, this is not a roll call, is it?
Not unless somebody asks for one, otherwise you can do a voice vote.
Okay, all right. So all in favor of approving the EEO workforce statistics?
Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Scheduling 2025 monthly meetings. Oh,
We added that because we wanted to make sure that you guys had opportunity to have discussion and then vote on your schedule at the next meeting. Currently, we're meeting the third Tuesdays at 5:30, but we wanted to make sure you had an opportunity to discuss if someone needed a different day or was thinking about a different day, and if could people make that day, or if this is a day that, you know, you're settled on, then next meeting you can vote to have your schedule, and then we can get it on the calendar ASAP.
okay. Okay, so commissioners, does this particular day of the month and time work for everyone? Shalini,
Yes, works perfectly for me.
works for me. Vahagan?
Nothing is good for me.
I can say right now.
Oh, okay. So if we go forward with this particular day of the month and
Yeah,
time,
probably I will have some recommendation for our next meeting
Okay.
for the dates.
okay, all right. Jerry, is that okay? Okay, Charles? It's good. Okay. So why don't we go with the idea that we're going to stick with it, and we'll hear from Vahagan about possible other things.
At the next meeting, you can just either vote or have some thoughts. Will you provide that prior to the meeting, and we can include that in the, okay.
Yeah, you can send it to Carla, not all of us. But- Okay. Report of officers. Carla?
Okay. As far as formal complaints, there are 2 active complaints. One concerns whether an employer denied employment based on race. This one is the person was terminated, and so we're making sure that that person was not terminated due to a protected class. Another is about whether a property owner denied a prospective tenant housing based on criminal record. That is in the response period, and so the respondent has, I think, 2 more weeks to provide that response. Contacts, informal complaints. We had one caller. She believed she was being discriminated against in services due to her disability. However, the complainant reported the incident after the time allowed for filing complaints under the ordinance, and so I referred that person to the IDHR, which is the Illinois Department of Human Rights. They have 300 days, and also because of the nature of it, to the Human and Health Service, the U.S. Department of Human Health and Services Civil Rights Office. I also received an email inquiry, a complaint about an employee. I reached out for clarity of the complaint because I wasn't sure if they were complaining about a business, if they were complaining about a coworker, if they were complaining about their employer. The person didn't give clarity when they submitted their complaint, but I reached out to them to get that information, and they have not responded. And so I'm just waiting for them to respond.
Okay.
Office activity on September 18th at the Champaign Public Library as a member of the Citizen and Citizenship Engagement Team for the Champaign County Welcome Plan. We hosted the Government 101 event. I had talked to you all about that event, was coming up, introducing the immigrant community to city services. the Urbana Police, Fire, Community Development, Public Works, and the Urbana Free Library, the Human Rights Offices of each city, Champaign and Urbana, had representation, and the visitors learned a lot about available services. We had an opportunity to just for them to get to know each of us in our offices and how to contact us, and just to learn interesting things about the office that you wouldn't necessarily know about. We had few Urbana residents attend this year, and so the team is looking at scheduling 2 events next year. And this event was during Welcome Week, and so we're hoping to do 2 events next year, where one would be in Urbana and one would be in Champaign. I think the disadvantage for the Urbana residents was that it was in the, further west of where Urbana is situated, and so we didn't get very many Urbana residents, but we're hoping that if we're able to bring one in Urbana, that it would be more convenient for Urbana residents. A reminder that there is a Black Mental Health and Wellness Conference on Saturday, October 26th, which is free and open to the public. If you want to attend, you must register. There is still room, but registrations will be cut off once the event reaches 150 participants. And I was at the Community Coalition meeting last week, and they said they were at 100 registrants, and so time is of the essence. A full breakfast and lunch will be served. And this event, it's not just for Black people to attend. This is to get education on Black mental health and wellness. And so everyone is encouraged to attend. I believe understanding is always a good opportunity for anyone to learn.
Okay.
That is the end of my report.
Okay, thank you. Announcements. This commission has 3 openings now. That's pretty good progress. The next scheduled meeting is Tuesday, November 19th, 2024 at 5:30 p.m. Is there anything else before we adjourn? No? Okay, this meeting is adjourned.